Would you believe me if I told you that it's possible to do 3 chain attacks with Zhu Yuan in a single stun? No Astra gimmicks needed? No? Then check this out. We're not quite done yet though. This is how long it takes for Zhu Yuan's chain attack to proc another chain. But if you pause at the right time and for the right amount of time, then it's pretty fast. And when trying to shave every second off a Shiyu run, it can make a difference. The triple chain tech is one I first came across on Billy, posted by Fengqi Jiyu. But I'm not here to just steal tech from CN. Whenever possible, I want to build on it myself. And through some rigorous labbing, I both managed to figure out how it worked and discover the early chain tech. So let me take you through how I got here and explain exactly how these techs work. The original Billy video specifies a few requirements. First, you need to begin a chain attack. Then you need to stay in the pause menu for a long enough time period. And lastly, you need to have manual chain attack activated and hold down the normal or basic attack button. But when I was labbing this, I saw there was more to it than that. I could hold it for a very long time and it'd work, sure. Pausing for a long enough time was needed, but there was a more important criteria of knowing when to pause. If I paused late in the chain attack, just before a trigger is meant to happen, and no amount of waiting would be enough, I would always proc a chain. But if I paused just as the attack started, then I could hold for much less time than the CN video and still get it to work. There was no need to hold down basic or special either, but never mind holding buttons. Even if I had manual chain attacks off, it still worked. The toggle itself wasn't necessary. Instead, I found that timing was crucial for a different tech. One that seemed to have flown by under the radar in CN. The ability to instantly proc a chain attack. And to do so with barely any pause wait. You see, when I was playing around with the timing, something weird started happening. Chain attacks would trigger long after the chain was over. I didn't even have to hit the enemy after, just waiting was enough. That's when I noticed there were delayed explosions. If I moved far away enough before they triggered, I could stop a chain attack from happening. But if I paused very early and held for enough time, I could still see the explosions. Just where Zhu Yuan was instead. That's when it clicked for me. The shot shells. The pause menu was holding back the shot shells. If we play this again in slow motion, you can see that after the pause ends, the shot shells from Zhu Yuan's chain attack hang in the air without moving, only to then explode one by one. The earlier you do it, the fewer shot shells there are, but it's still very much clear that they aren't moving. If you pause too late, then too many shot shells fire, and they're already very close to the enemy. And since they still explode, the chain triggers even if a single one pops in range. Still, something didn't line up, as the delayed shot shells would blow up, even if I paused before any of them had come out. Ghost shot shells. This didn't make much sense, as if you recall, pausing early caused the shot shells to explode in Zhu Yuan's position, not the enemy. I refined my timing a little and found something even weirder. It could both have shot shells in Zhu Yuan's position and the enemy at the same time. After a few more attempts, I came across the instant chain by accident. Breaking this down, we can see that a single shot shell has appeared. After I undo the pause though, rather than the shot shells hanging in the air and exploding, it just vanishes entirely and a ghost shot shell appears after. Sometimes the shot shell would still vanish, but no ghost explosion would appear. And at other times, almost all the shot shells would explode. And this was something I could easily replicate with proper timing. It really just seemed to come down to when I would pause. This is where I remembered that there could be multiple explosions in different places at the same time. When doing Zhu Yuan's chain, you notice my beam is hitting for 27,900, while the shot shells hit for 9,300 each. Count the numbers and we have 6 shot shell explosions. But whenever I'd get an instant chain, I would only count 4 at most. I decided to try the tech without a third character for a chain, and things started to make more sense. Playing it again, you can see that I paused with only 1 shot shell out. When I unpause, you can see I get my 9300 crit from a shot shell hit, and some of the shot shells at 3100, which didn't crit. Wait a bit, and a single ghost shot shell hits, far delayed from when I first fired it. If instead of letting go of pause very early, I chose to wait a very long time, rather than the shot shells stopping mid-air as they did before, they would just immediately explode. But if I didn't wait long enough, the shot shells that I fire would outright despawn, only to then appear with a delay on the enemy. And some of those that didn't get fired would proc instantly. But when waiting for a really long period, there is no delayed explosions. The shot shells just vanish for good. With these no chain tests, we finally have the final pieces of the puzzle. When you pause the game after Zhu Yuan has fired her shot shells, holding for a while causes the game to halt their momentum. But after unpausing, it does not resume their momentum. The explosions though are still ticking, which means that if you are too late in pausing or are too close to the enemy, they'll blow up and still hit them. Do it early, when only some shot shells have been fired, and you're good to go. Since it's only the shot shells that proc chain and not Zhu Yuan's beam, this means that you can keep looping chains on her back to back. Thing is, although the game pauses the momentum, it does not pause the explosion timer, which ticks during the pause period. If you wait a little, you can see them hang in the air after unpausing. Wait a lot and they'll immediately blow. But way too little and the game seems to just lose its marbles. It despawns the shot shells entirely. They are still there though, just that their momentum hasn't been paused. So after their time is up, they'll still blow up, even if there is no visible physical shot shell to hit the enemy. And since it's the shot shells and their explosions that trigger chain, you get a delayed chain attack. You can still get triple chains with this if you either move so far that the chains won't proc, or swap out of Zhu Yuan quickly to prevent it from triggering. Although sometimes the pause can mess with their tracking. If you initiate the pause before the shot shells are fired, they have no momentum, so despite the short pause, they just explode as is. Depending on when you started the pause, you can get both at the same time. But if you pause for a very little time, despite the remaining shot shells not yet being out, the game considers them to be a part of the beam attack, immediately triggering a chain on unpause. There's no delayed explosions for those that didn't fire, only for some of those that did. If pausing for a short period causes the shot shell projectiles to despawn and the explosion to trigger late, then pausing for an extremely short period causes the inverse to happen. The unfired shot shell's explosions will despawn, but the projectile triggers instantly, hitting with the beam. Which means you can get immediate chain attacks with faster burst. So let's cover it all again, with only the actions that you need to perform. The most important thing about these techs is the timing, both of when you pause and for how long you pause. Rather than counting in seconds, I find it easiest to count the number of pulses the pause menu has. And note how the combat details part keeps pulsing. This is something we can use to keep track of the timing. For all techs, you want to pause just as Zhu Yuan begins her attack, ideally after at least one shot shell has been fired. Then it's how long you hold for that determines what happens next. If you want the triple chain attack as standard, you want to hold for at least 5 pulses, but ideally more. The longer you hold, the easier it is. You can hold for more than 10 pulses. That's as much of a guarantee you get that it works. If you want a delayed explosion though, then you're looking at around 4 pulses. By swapping out before they land, you can get the triple chain attack, but still benefit from some shot shell damage, rather than having them all whiff. If you want the instant attack though, then any pause that's less than 4 pulses is enough. You can pretty much immediately unpause and it still works. Although these attacks are pretty cool, there are some caveats. For the triple chain, it does mean you lose out on the shot shell explosion damage. When adding it all up, it's about 30% of the chain attack damage that you're losing with every chain. But considering that you need to cancel a chain attack prompt to double chain, that means you'd be missing out on damage from a third chain without this tech. Better to have 2 chains missing out damage and a third doing full damage, than doing only 2 chains at full damage anyways. And so long as you swap out of Zhu Yuan before the delayed ghost shot shells hit, you still don't trigger a chain attack, so you can benefit from both shot shell damage and the triple chain. You can only get 4 shot shells or so, but that's very close to the 6 you'd otherwise get, making it even better for damage. As for the instant chain, Well, you do still trigger a chain, so you need to work around it. If your rotation involves chaining into Zhu Yuan and then cancelling out, or you trigger a chain with an ultimate rather than Zhu Yuan's own chain, then it isn't much help. So it's better suited to M1 Zhu Yuan, where you have an overflow of ammo and nowhere near enough time to spend it all on a single stun period. Or Shiyu speedruns, where you can set up a very high burst and kill as part of your opener in the stun. And that about covers it. If you like learning about niche character tags, or want detailed character guide breakdowns that focus on execution, then do like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I've got more videos coming. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.